The great hall of the Varnak Prime Starbase was filled with light, music, and diplomats from all over the galaxy. Flags from many worlds hung from the high ceiling. The moment was historic. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy had come together for peace. In the center of the hall stood a tall human woman, dressed in white. Her name was Dr. Lena Cross, Earth's top ambassador. She was smart, calm, and deeply respected. Lena took a step forward and began her speech. Her voice echoed through the massive chamber. We came from Earth not with weapons, but with hope. Hope for peace. Hope for unity. We believe that together we can build a better future. Many clapped. Some smiled. Others just watched. On the other side of the room stood the Varnak delegation. Tall, reptilian creatures with cold yellow eyes. They were the most powerful empire in this part of the galaxy. For years, they had ruled with fear. Their leader, General Frexen, was silent. His claws rested on the table before him. Lena continued, "We offer friendship. We offer trade. Let this day mark a new beginning for all of us." Suddenly, a sharp sound cut through the air. Crack! A bolt of blue energy flashed across the hall. It struck Lena in the chest. Her body flew backward and hit the floor with a sickening thud. The room froze. Gasps filled the hall. A few people screamed. Others ducked for cover. Lena didn't move. Standing now, arm raised and weapon still smoking, was General Frexen. He smiled. "Foolish humans," he said coldly. "Peace is for the weak." The Varnak delegates began to laugh. Loud, cruel, echoing laughter. Behind them, armed Varnak guards stepped forward. But Earth's security team did not fight. They stood still, shocked and silent. One of the human captains whispered into his communicator, "Confirm code black. The ambassador is down." Across the galaxy, news spread like wildfire. Earth's ambassador, dead, killed during a peace meeting. People everywhere were stunned. Some cried. Some got angry. Some waited for Earth to strike back. But Earth said nothing. The next day, Earth's ships began to leave the outer colonies. One by one, they returned to home space. No threats. No warnings. No speeches. They simply left. Many alien leaders whispered, "They're scared." Others mocked them. So much for brave little Earth. The Varnak Empire celebrated. Their news channels called it a victory. They showed Lena's last speech, cutting it just before she was killed. They called it a lesson in real power. But back on Earth, everything was quiet. No interviews, no announcements, no revenge, just silence. Days passed, then weeks. The galaxy waited, but nothing came. Some thought Earth had lost its will. Others believed they were hiding. A few even said humans had finally learned their place. But deep in space, in the dark corners of the Milky Way, something else was happening. Ships moved in total silence. Old asteroid fields had new activity. No one noticed at first, but sensors picked up strange power surges. Cargo ships changed course for unknown destinations, and some human colonies began going offline, not because of attacks, but by choice. The galaxy didn't understand it. Why wasn't Earth responding? Why did they retreat so calmly? Why was everything so quiet? Some felt nervous. Others felt nothing at all. But those who watched carefully, those who studied human history, they knew. Earth was not weak. Earth was waiting. Something had changed. Something deep. Back in the Varnak capital, General Frexen stood before his throne. He held Lena Cross's blood-stained speech papers in his claws. "Let this be a warning," he said. "This is what happens when weaklings talk peace." His soldiers cheered. But even as they celebrated, far away in the shadows of space, a figure watched a screen filled with news clips. The figure's face was hidden in darkness. It spoke just 4 words. "Begin Phase 1. Now." The screen went black. And for the first time since the assassination, something moved deep beneath Earth's crust. A signal was sent, one that hadn't been used in over 100 years. A signal that meant only one thing. Vengeance was coming. Days turned into weeks. Still, Earth said nothing. No protests, no war threats, no demand for justice. The galaxy grew confused. Where was the anger? Where were the humans' famous emotions? The fire. Instead, Earth disappeared from the stars. Their embassies closed. Their trade ships stopped flying. Their diplomats returned home. The Human Alliance, the great network of Earth and its colonies, shut down all communication with the outside galaxy. No signals, no answers, just silence. The Varnak Empire grew bold. Their leaders spoke proudly on galactic channels. They called Earth cowards and children pretending to be powerful. Alien news shows laughed about Lena Cross's death, calling her the ambassador of tears. The galaxy moved on. But deep in the cold dark of space, something strange was happening. Inside a dead asteroid field near the star Eros 9, black ships floated like shadows. They had no names, no markings. Their metal looked like stone. Their engines made no sound. They were not listed in any Earth fleet registry. These were the Ghost-class ships, stealth vessels built in secret, far from any prying eyes. No light touched them. No radar found them. They had one purpose only: revenge. Hidden inside the largest asteroid was a massive command center, known only by one name: the Forge. It was run by a mysterious figure. No one knew her real name. She was called the Architect. No one saw her face. She spoke through a deep voice filter and cold, clear orders. She stood in front of a giant holographic map of the galaxy. Red lights marked every Varnak base. Green lights marked every human colony. One red dot blinked. "That is where they killed Ambassador Cross," she said. "That is where this begins." Beside her stood a group of silent officers, men and women handpicked from Earth's best Black Ops teams. Each wore dark armor with no symbols. The Architect spoke again. "Project Vengeance begins now." Meanwhile, in Varnak space, ships began disappearing. At first, it was small. A mining ship lost signal. A patrol ship went missing. A transport ship never arrived. The Varnak thought it was technical errors. Then came the first whisper. "The humans are here." A Varnak outpost sent a distress signal, cut off mid-sentence. Security footage showed a black shape tearing through space, silent and fast. The footage ended in static. Panic started to grow. But Earth still didn't speak. Their officials made no public statements, no claims of attack, no war declarations. The silence grew louder. In the Galactic Council, other alien races began to worry. The Krell, a peaceful race of scholars, sent a message to Earth. "Please, speak to us. What are you doing?" They received no reply. Back on Varnak Prime, General Threxon was furious. He ordered more patrols, more guards, more weapons. But still, ships kept disappearing. No survivors, no clues. A Varnak admiral said in fear, "It's like they're ghosts." The fear spread quickly. In hidden forums and dark network channels, alien smugglers shared rumors. They spoke of human ships that couldn't be tracked, of silent kills, of bodies found with no wounds, just fear frozen on their faces. One smuggler even claimed he saw a ship shaped like a blade, flying without fire, almost invisible. He said he heard a voice over his comm system before his ship was destroyed. Lena Cross sends her regards. Many called it a lie. But the missing ships were real. The fear was real. And Earth remained dead quiet. Far away in the Forge, the Architect stood before a giant screen showing footage of Varnak broadcasts. Their laughing faces, their mocking words. She stared at the image of General Threxon. "He doesn't know yet," she said coldly. "But his time is almost over." Behind her, a soldier spoke, Phase 2 ready. Strike team in position. She gave the order. Proceed. No survivors. The lights on the screen began to blink faster. The galaxy still believed Earth was hiding. But in truth, Earth was hunting. And it had become something far more dangerous than angry. It had become silent, focused, and deadly. The storm was not coming. It had already begun. In a quiet corner of the Varnak Empire, a space station named Outpost Zarnak 4 floated above a cold red moon. It was a fuel and supply station. Nothing special. Soldiers there were relaxed. They believed they were safe, too far from trouble, too small to be a target. But they were wrong. It started at midnight. The outpost communication officer yawned and checked the radar. Nothing unusual. Suddenly, the screen flashed. A strange signal appeared, but only for half a second. Then it vanished. The officer frowned. Must be a glitch, he said. He was about to call tech support when the lights went out. Total darkness. Then, emergency red lights turned on. Alarms began to ring. Soldiers grabbed their weapons. Is it a drill? One asked. No one answered. In the control room, the commander barked orders. Check systems. Get the backup power online. Where's our ship feed? One screen flickered to life. It showed the outer space. A shape moved across it. Dark, sharp, silent. It wasn't on radar. It had no heat signature. But it was there. A black ship, long and smooth like a blade. A second screen turned on. It showed the hallway inside the station. The lights flickered again. Then, shadows. Figures moved. Humans in black armor. No emblems. No voices. No mercy. The Varnak soldiers tried to fight. But the humans were too fast, too quiet, and too trained. Every room fell in seconds. One soldier managed to send out a distress signal before he was taken down. It reached Varnak Command, then cut off. Back on Varnak Prime, General Threxen stood frozen as he watched the last seconds of the footage. He saw the dark-armored humans walk through smoke, leaving behind silent bodies. One human looked directly at the camera. Then, the screen turned black. The only words left in the transmission were, "This is for Lena Cross." Threxen slammed his fist onto the table. "How did they get past our defenses?" he yelled. "Where's their fleet?" But there was no fleet, no invasion, just one ship, one deadly, invisible ship. And now the whole outpost was gone. Destroyed. Not bombed, not nuked. Erased. News spread fast. The galaxy had laughed at Earth's silence. Now, they were terrified of it. Varnak leaders held emergency meetings. They doubled guards at every base, sent extra patrols, ordered new scanners to detect stealth ships. But fear had already entered their hearts. A new message appeared on their secure networks. It had no sender, no trace. Just 6 words. "We are not the same humans." Panic started to grow. The Varnak had fought many wars. But never like this. They were used to big battles, loud enemies, and clear war fronts. But this was different. No warnings, no uniforms, no sound. Just surgical strikes. Quick, clean, and total. In just 4 days, 3 more Varnak outposts vanished. No survivors. No answers. Each time, the same message was found. For Lena Cross. Back on Earth, the leaders of the Human Alliance met in a hidden chamber deep below the planet's surface. They sat around a dark table. Each one had lost someone in the ambassador's death. They watched the reports come in. Black Ops footage, silent takedowns, enemy confusion. One general finally spoke. "The galaxy still thinks we're afraid. Let them. We'll give them fear." The architect's voice came through the speakers. "The next phase is ready. It's time they see what Earth really is." Meanwhile, in a Varnak colony world called Dranex, families lived normal lives. Shops, schools, spaceports. It all looked peaceful. But hidden among them were new strangers. Quiet, careful, watching everything. Humans in disguise. Agents of Project Vengeance. One of them sent a message back to Earth. Target marked. Civilian Command Center confirmed. Awaiting orders. The architect read the message and gave a short reply. Stand by. The world will soon watch. She turned to her screen and opened a video file. It showed Ambassador Lena Cross's final speech, her hopeful words, her smile. Then the shot. Then the laughter. The screen froze on General Threxon's face. You should not have laughed, she whispered. The next strike would not be silent. The next strike would be a message. The first strike was quiet. The second would shake the stars. The Varnak Empire had always been known for its strength. It was a power that controlled vast parts of the galaxy, crushing any who dared to challenge it. But now something new was happening. A single, silent force was hunting them down. The first 3 strikes were a warning. The galaxy watched as outposts and military bases vanished without a trace. No one knew how it was happening or who was behind it. But that was about to change. The next target was Draenix, a Varnak colony world that was home to millions. The planet was a jewel, beautiful, peaceful, and rich in resources. Its citizens lived in calm, unaware that a storm was coming. The attack started in the dead of night. The first sign was a sudden flicker of light in the sky. It looked like a shooting star, but it was too slow, too controlled. It didn't burn out like a normal meteor. It was descending straight for Draenix. For hours, nothing happened. People went about their business, unaware of the danger. Then, at sunrise, the first explosion rocked the city. A giant ball of fire rose into the sky, brighter than the sun itself. It was so powerful, it shook the ground. Windows shattered. Buildings collapsed. Thousands screamed as the shockwave ripped through the city streets. But this was only the beginning. The Varnak military quickly mobilized. Ships raced to the planet, but they arrived too late. More explosions followed, each one more powerful than the last. The sky was filled with streaks of fire. The ground trembled as if the planet itself was in pain. The attack wasn't just about destruction. It was about sending a message. The message was clear. In the heart of the destruction, a lone figure appeared on the screen. It was a human. Dark armor. Silent, as always. He stood on top of a mountain of rubble, looking down at the burning city. Then he spoke. This is for Lena Cross. The screen cut to black. Across the galaxy, eyes were glued to their screens. The Varnak leadership scrambled to respond. They called emergency meetings. They sent reinforcements. They ordered planetary shields to activate. But they knew it was already too late. This wasn't a battle. It was a declaration. The humans were not weak. They were not hiding. They were here. On Varnak Prime, General Threxon stood in his command center. His face was stone. His hands clenched into fists as he watched the destruction of Draenix unfold. They will pay for this, he growled. His officers were silent. They knew the humans were not following normal rules of war. They didn't care about military honor or pride. They cared about one thing, vengeance. And they were willing to destroy entire worlds for it. The message from Draenix spread quickly. It reached every corner of the galaxy. Alien races who had once laughed at humanity's weakness now felt fear. They had seen the destruction, the power, the rage. In the quiet corners of space, Earth's hidden ships moved once more. The Ghost-class vessels glided through the void, their engines silent, their mission clear. No more outposts. No more small strikes. It was time to strike at the heart of the Varnak Empire. The next target was not a small colony. It was Varnak Prime itself. Back on Earth, the leaders of the Human Alliance gathered once more. This time, there were no questions. There were no doubts. The architect stood before them, calm as always. Her voice was soft, but her words were deadly. The Varnak will not stop. We must send them a message they will never forget. It's time to hit them where it hurts." She turned to the screen behind her. It showed the Varnak Prime star system, the heart of their empire. Their leaders are arrogant. They think they control everything. But they are not prepared for what is coming. The architects of the human plan were ready. The first phase of their revenge was complete. Now, they would move on to the next. The world held its breath as the first human ship entered the Varnak system. Its name was not known. Its appearance was silent. And its message was clear. No one can stop us. On Varnak Prime, the Varnak leadership was preparing for the worst. Their military forces were in motion. They were ready to defend their home. But they didn't know the full extent of the enemy they faced. The humans were coming. And this time, there would be no mercy. The galaxy watched in silence. For years, the Varnak Empire had ruled without question. Their power was unmatched. They controlled planets, resources, and entire star systems. The idea that anyone could threaten them seemed impossible. But now, it was happening. The humans, a race once thought weak and insignificant, had made their move, and they were unstoppable. Varnak Prime, the heart of the Empire, was now the target. For the first time in their history, the Varnak were forced to defend their home. They'd rushed to ready their defenses. Hundreds of ships, thousands of soldiers, and powerful weapons lined up in orbit around their capital planet. But Earth had something far more terrifying. Stealth. Deep within the cold void of space, Earth's Ghost-class ships moved silently toward Varnak Prime. Each one was like a shadow. No heat signatures, no energy traces. They were invisible to every Varnak sensor. General Threxen sat in his command center, watching the reports from his fleet. His hands were tense on the table. "They're out there," he muttered. "I can feel it. They're already here." But there was no sign of them. Only silence. The Varnak sent more ships into orbit, more scanners into deep space. They even activated their planetary shields, massive energy fields meant to stop any attacks from space. Still, there was no sign of the humans. In the darkness of space, the architect gave the order. The signal was sent. The first strike came from nowhere. A Varnak warship in the outer rings of the planet's defense grid exploded into a ball of fire. The explosion was sudden, bright, and loud, but there was no warning, no alert, just a flash of light, and then silence. It was the first blow. Panic spread through Varnak Prime. The leaders of the Empire scrambled, sending messages to their generals, ordering them to increase patrols, to search for any trace of the enemy. But the humans had already moved. One by one, Varnak ships began to disappear. Silent explosions shook the void. Weapons fired with deadly accuracy. Each ship was picked off, one after another. No one knew where the humans were. They couldn't hear them. They couldn't see them. But the destruction was clear. On the surface of Varnak Prime, civilians ran through the streets in chaos. The ground trembled with each explosion, and the sky was filled with smoke. Sirens wailed as panic spread. In the command centers, Varnak leaders shouted orders, but they had no answers. "Where are they?" General Threxen demanded. "Where is the enemy?" Then, a message appeared on every screen across Varnak Prime. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't a demand. It was a reminder. The message was simple, but its meaning was clear. "This is for Lena Cross." The entire planet froze. The humans had struck again. But this time, they were sending a clear message. Lena Cross was their reason, and they would stop at nothing to make the Varnak pay. On Earth, in the heart of the human alliance, leaders watched the reports. The first phase of their plan had worked. The Varnak were in chaos. Their fleet was broken. Their planet was under attack. But they weren't finished yet. The architect stood once again before the silent room of commanders. "The time has come to make them feel our full wrath," she said softly. "Prepare the final strike." Varnak Prime's planetary defenses were strong, but the humans had prepared for this. They had one weapon left, one last chance to end this war. They activated their most powerful ship, the Titan. It was massive, larger than any known warship in the galaxy. Its weapons were unlike anything the Varnak had ever seen. It could pierce through even the strongest shields, break the mightiest defenses. The Titan wasn't just a ship. It was a symbol of humanity's fury. The Varnak fleet had been scattered, and now only a few remaining ships stood between the humans and the planet itself. The Titan moved into position. The Varnak's last line of defense fired everything they had: laser cannons, energy blasts, missile barrages. But none of it mattered. The Titan's shields absorbed every hit, barely moving. The Varnak ships that tried to stop it were destroyed with a single blast. On the surface of Varnak Prime, the sky grew dark as the Titan descended. Its shadow stretched across the planet like a dark omen. Inside the capital, the Varnak leaders were watching their doom approach. General Threxin stood at the window, his fists clenched, his eyes wide with terror. "It's over," he whispered. "We're done." The Titan unleashed its final attack. A beam of pure energy shot down from the ship's main cannon, cutting through Varnak Prime's planetary shields like paper. The beam hit the surface, causing an explosion so powerful it shook the planet itself. The message was clear. The Varnak Empire was finished. The human vengeance had been complete. And across the galaxy, every race knew one thing: humanity was not to be underestimated. The galaxy was still in shock. The Varnak Empire, once the greatest power in the galaxy, was now in ruins. Varnak Prime, the heart of their empire, had been shattered. The entire planet was scared, its cities in ruins, and its people left to pick up the pieces. But in the aftermath of destruction, something new began to take shape. On Earth, humanity stood in silence. There were no cheers, no celebrations, just quiet reflection. The mission was complete. The vengeance for Lena Cross and the countless lives lost had been carried out, but the cost of this victory was high. The Titan, humanity's ultimate weapon, had done its job. It had torn through Varnak Prime's defenses, obliterating the heart of the Empire. But now it stood silent in orbit, its mission done. The architect watched the reports from Earth. The destruction on Varnak Prime was beyond anything she had imagined. But this victory wasn't about the destruction. It was about sending a message that would echo across the stars. "We will never be weak again," she whispered to herself. Back on Earth, the leaders of the Human Alliance gathered once more. The victory was bittersweet. There had been great loss, both on Earth and in the galaxy. Thousands of lives were lost in the pursuit of vengeance, but there was no turning back now. The Human Alliance had risen to power. Their enemies had learned the hard way that underestimating humanity would lead to their own downfall. The Varnak Empire was no more, but what would fill the void? As Earth took its place on the galactic stage, a new era began. But peace wouldn't come easily. The galaxy had already started to react. Alien races that had once feared the Varnak now watched the humans with suspicion. They saw what Earth had done, and they were unsure what the future held. Some of them prepared for war. They feared the humans' newfound strength, but others, more cautious, began to consider a different path. The Human Alliance called for a meeting of the galaxy's surviving powers. It was time for peace, or at least a chance for peace. A new message went out across the stars, broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. "We have proven that we will protect ourselves, but we do not wish for more war. The Varnak are gone, but we will not destroy what remains. The galaxy is vast, and we are willing to work with those who wish for peace. But know this, we will never be weak again." It was a bold statement, and it was one that would change the galaxy forever. In the command center on Earth, the architect stood before the window, staring out at the stars. She had led humanity to this point, but she knew the future would be different. The humans were no longer under the shadow of the Varnak. They had proven their strength, but with that strength came responsibility. Now, they would have to decide how to move forward. Would they dominate the galaxy? Would they seek revenge on those who had once laughed at them? Or would they build a new future, one of peace and cooperation with other races? The architect's voice was soft as she turned to the leaders around her. We have earned the respect of the galaxy. Now we must choose the path we will walk. We can be conquerors, or we can be something more. The choice is ours. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other races watched closely. They knew the humans were powerful, but they didn't yet understand what Earth's true intentions were. Some feared Earth's growing power, but others, more hopeful, saw the possibility for a new future, one where humans might stand beside them, not above them. The human alliance was now at a crossroads. The galaxy was no longer a place where they could hide. They had shown their strength, and now the question was how they would use it. Would they seek to rebuild what they had destroyed? Would they create something better? Or would they fall into the same traps as the Varnak, becoming too powerful, too proud, until they too fell? The next few years would be critical for humanity. The choices they made now would define their future. But one thing was clear. The era of humanity's silence was over. The galaxy would never forget the humans' vengeance, and the humans would never forget the lessons they had learned.